You're watching Twin Tiers Sunday with Jennifer Sheahen.
Welcome to Twin Tiers Sunday. I'm your host, Jennifer Sheahen. This week, we're at Harris Hill. It's the nation's soaring capital, and it's a type of aviation that even the most experienced of pilots gets excitement from. This week, we not only explore the inside of the museum at the top of Harris Hill, but also what it feels like to take flight.
And there's Big Flats.
Before we do that, Ron Ogden is going to explain how the Soaring Museum came about to our area. Tell us a little bit about the history of the Soaring Museum, because it is such an integral part of our culture here in the Twin Tiers.
Well, Jen, soaring really began in any kind of organized way here on Harris Hill now 84 years ago, in 1930, 85 years ago actually, and it remained here. We've been flying here on Harris Hill all those many decades. And beginning in the late 1960s, Paul Schweizer, particularly, from Schweizer Aircraft Corporation, and people in the city of Elmira, because Elmira and Chemung County had always been very supportive of soaring. They kind of got together and they talked to people around the country, and they decided they want to have a museum of motorless flight, and the logical place was to put it right here at the glider field. So we used to have a beautiful old building here called the Administration Building. And I can remember when the Soaring Museum actually was in that building. Unfortunately, that burned down about 77, I believe it was. And the insurance proceeds were used to build the very first part of the modern National Soaring Museum. And since then, it's expanded twice. And we are now the largest soaring museum in the world by the size of our collection of gliders and artifacts.
That's absolutely incredible. And you know, you touched a little bit about how soaring got started here in the Tiers, but this is almost the capital of the nation of soaring too. A lot of, I guess, at one point or another, I'd heard you talk about the parts. Maybe Jeep or something had built parts for gliders.
Well, no, actually, Jeep, the Willys Morrow Company, which built the predecessor of the Jeep, actually was located in Elmira in the first part of the 20th century. And I believe it was Dr. Morrow, actually did some experiments in helicopters. So that's the Elmira connection with aviation. But this entire area, from Hammondsport and Bath and the Curtis history to the west, all the way out to Binghamton and Link, the father of aircraft simulation training in Binghamton, this is one of the most historic parts of the United States in terms of aviation history.
It's absolutely incredible. And then what would you say is the one thing that stands out here at Harris Hill, other than just the outlook, and the one thing in the museum that just says, you know what, this is our staple, this is something big that we have that nobody else does?
Well, if I may, I think the thing that matters the most to me is our wonderful mystery mural that we actually have relocated from where it used to be and cleaned, and now hangs in our balcony area, that has emblazoned across the top Elmira, New York, gliding center of the United States. It is undoubtedly from the mid-1930s and really represents, in one 20-foot long, 4-foot tall oil painting, the history of this sport in this place.
It's absolutely wonderful. And you know, I've been gliding as well, so in a little bit you're going to be able to see the piece that I did last year when I went up soaring. Unfortunately, I get a little nauseous when I go soaring, so I'm going to have to re-air that for you, but it is absolutely wonderful experience. It is something that is truly almost a beauty, because there is no engine. You're up there, just it's you, the sky, the wind, and a pilot, and or sometimes, you know, just the pilot himself. So it's very, very beautiful experience. And how many people do you see? I mean, you're here on a daily basis. How many people do you see take off soaring here? Because I don't think a lot of people realize that this is actually.
Of course, we're particularly busy from the end of school to Labor Day is our really peak season. We fly every day that the weather is good. And on a good soaring day in the summer, we can typically have 30 or 40 flights here from Harris Hill. So you can see over a summer, you know, sometimes 1,000 or more flights take place during the summer months, and it remains busy. It tends to ramp down a little bit as the kids go back to school, because, you know, I do want to make a point that soaring is a sport that is really friendly for young people. We here at Harris Hill Soaring Corporation have the largest and most active junior member program in the country. something else that you can't get living in New York, Chicago, LA, Dallas, places like that. But you can get it because you live here in Elmira Corning area. If you have a young person who wants to learn to fly, this is the place. It's really inexpensive, very social. The kids love it. So it gets very busy in the summertime.
Definitely, and it's, yeah, like he said, a lot of young kids. When I came here, there was, I think, like between 14 and 16-year-olds getting ready either for their first flight by themselves or just experimenting with building the planes. And it's absolutely incredible at a young age how kids can do something as magnificent as soaring. So you guys are hosting a camp here as well.
We are. We every year, in honor of our hometown hero, Colonel Eileen Collins, United States Air Force retired, the first female pilot in command of an American space shuttle. We have the Eileen Collins Aviation Camps, 1 week for boys, 1 week for girls. Kay Norton is our coordinator. And they're very, very popular, and they've been going on now for nearly 20 years.
Is there anything else that you can tell us about the camp or what it entails?
About the camp? No, they just have every year it's a little bit different. They like to change it up just a little bit, but there's always lots of flying involved because that's the whole idea. What we want to show the kids is that they do have the freedom of aviation. It's an opportunity, again, that you don't often get in other parts, even of the world, to tell you the truth, that you get here on Harris Hill with the ability to take part in aviation and into, if you're interested, and we don't expect everybody to be, but certainly our programs here on Harris Hill have graduated Air Force pilots, commercial pilots, cargo pilots, space shuttle pilots.
Now you learned a little bit about what this historical aspect of the museum. So let's go inside and take a look at what you can see when you come up. So the director of the museum, Peter Smith, joins us now. He's going to explain about this piece right here. Peter, tell me what this is and why it is such an important part of the museum.
This is a bolt of cloth from the wing of the 1903 Wright Flyer, the first aircraft to achieve controlled powered flight.
That is absolutely
It was
stunning.
given to us by a nephew of the Wright brothers.
Absolutely incredible. And I understand that this is one of the largest pieces of that plane.
That's correct.
And we are lucky enough to have it here in their very own Twin Tiers. And not only is this an important part of the museum, but it also marks a new book that is coming out about the Wright brothers. Tell me a little about the book.
This book by David McCulloch, who is a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner, just went on sale this morning. They actually let me in early at Barnes & Noble so that I could pick it up. Obviously, I haven't read it yet because it just went on sale today, but I'm looking forward to it. There have been actually many books written about the Wright brothers. This is, I think, the first one by a prominent known author.
That is incredible. And for someone that's watching that, hasn't experienced the museum and hasn't experienced the Wright brothers and the love for flying, can you tell me what the Wright brothers did for aviation in general?
The Wright brothers were not the first to fly. Many people flew before the Wright brothers. What they did is they achieved controlled flight. And all those people before them who managed uncontrolled flight, that often didn't end well.
There you go.
So that's the important thing that the Wright brothers did. Before them, anything that flew had no way of turning. That's really their achievement.
That's absolutely incredible. So they really kicked off, like you said, controlled aviation. And you guys are also lucky enough to have 2 models of these airplanes. Tell me about the 2 models that you have here.
These are full-sized replicas. One of them is the 1902 glider, which is important because that's where they perfected their control mechanisms. And the 1902 glider really is, for all intents and purposes, the same as the 1903, but it doesn't have an engine. And then they kept on flying gliders, or at least Orville did, and so we have a replica of the 1911 glider, And the distinction of that is that Orville flew it at Kitty Hawk for 9 minutes and 45 seconds, which is recognized universally as the first soaring flight.
That's absolutely incredible. See, and look, you can come down here and see how it looked. And I think that's the most incredible part of this museum, is that you can actually come down here with your kids and see how, you know, yeah, you go on jets and you're going to go to Florida and you're going to go flying, but the history of it, to find the exact point and see how it all started is absolutely an amazing thing to have right here in our own backyard. So thank you so much for explaining this just a little bit of what they have here. So now we're going to move on and see one more little part, and then we'll take you outside. So this is Kay Norton, and she's part of the museum as well. And I know you heard Ron a little bit earlier talk about the aviation camp that is happening, and she's actually going to give us a little bit more detail than Ron did. So tell us about the camp and what kids can come down here and learn.
Well, we actually have two camps. Our first is the Eileen Collins Aerospace Camp, which is for students from ages 9 to 14, boys and girls. And this is a really exciting camp. The highlight tends to be the glider ride and the Cessna ride that children get to go on. But it's also all STEM-based. This year, for instance, we're doing a new program where the students are challenged to design their own water filters, like what would have been used on the International Space Station when they recycle their water up there. So it's a lot of fun. It's very hands-on, and the kids are learning a tremendous amount, but they're having so much fun they don't even realize they're learning.
Great.
We also do our Summer of Innovation. This year it's the Summer of Soaring Academy. This camp is shorter. It's only half a day. It's aimed at students from ages 8 to 12. And it also includes a glider ride, and it's a little simpler, not as intense, but it still involves the STEM, math, science, a lot of hands-on projects.
That's absolutely great. And how much does it cost for the week-long program?
All right. So the Eileen Collins Camp is $400 per student, and there are scholarships available.
That's wonderful. And then, so they have a boys session and a girls session, correct? So when would be, I guess, the deadline to sign up for the camp?
The final day we take applications is June 30th.
And then the actual start of the camp?
And the boys will begin on July 6th, and the girls will begin on July 13th.
That's awesome. So I guess now that you work here, are you a soarer yourself?
I'm learning. I'm a student pilot.
That's wonderful. And why, I guess, did you take up this craft? Because honestly, you have to kind of have a little bit of passion for it to come out here and even learn it. Because it is, I mean, you're flying. It is a dangerous thing. So why did you step into this realm of soaring?
I just got lucky. When you fly, or at least when I fly a glider, it's very surreal and it's very empowering and humbling at the same time to know that you are in charge of this plane, but also that you are so much smaller than you ever think you are.
It's very true, and that pretty much sums up the way I felt too when I was soaring. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if you have a chance, call down here. What is the phone number?
It's 607-734-3128.
And sign up, because it's a great program, and you're really going to do a great thing for your kid for them to learn this. It's a beautiful thing that we have right here. Perfect. Thank you so much. So we took a little bit of tour of the museum. You found out about the camp that they're offering here at the museum. And on your way out too, you might as well stop at the gift shop. And believe it or not, even if you want to come down and get something for Mother's Day or Father's Day, there's always an opportunity to not just see the museum, but find some really cool stuff here as well. Lisa, tell me about the kind of the unique things that you guys have in the shop.
Oh, there's a lot of unique things. We still carry the balsa wood airplanes that most people remember from their childhood. We have a huge selection of t-shirts, starting with Soaring Museum t-shirts, and then we have just some generic ones for visitors, and there's just postcards and coffee mugs, and there's just the whole gambit of gift shop items.
Definitely, and it's definitely things that you can't find every day. You know, like you said, the balsa wood planes and things like that. So it's something that you can take away with you when you come here and go home and try your own little bit of aviation. Perfect. I guess, tell me anything else that may be unique about this store.
The unique is it is about aviation. So it's as you've already said, where there's things here that you might not find anywhere else. The little kids still love the mini parachuting guys where you throw them up and they fall and the parachute opens. So that's always a popular thing for the real little ones. So there's some reach back in your memory to gifts to really look forward to.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. And now we're going to head outside right after the break, and we're actually going to show you a little bit of the soaring and how it all works, because it definitely is a sight to see. I had a great opportunity last year to go soaring right before local husband and wife Heinz and Karen Weissenbuehler were selected to represent the United States in the 20-meter multi-place class at the World Gliding Championships in Finland. Soaring pilot Andy Breyer explained that this duo was very rare.
Heinz, the pilot, is he's been here at Harris Hill his entire life. He grew up here. His house is actually like a quarter mile off the end of the runway to one side, and so he's very close to Harris Hill all the time, and he was doing competitions as young as his early 20s, and basically the way that you qualify for competitions is that you have to go to a lot of races and you have to consistently place well, and what they had been doing is his wife Karen also flies gliders and airplanes, and they had sort of for fun been flying together in a two-seat glider, which is something you don't see. Is very unique. There's no other husband and wife team really that flies like that anywhere else in the United States, and possibly, I don't want to say the world, but they're very rare that, you know, a husband and wife would fly together. And so they started going to a lot of races for fun and flying together, and they did pretty well consistently, and then the one guy that was ahead of them, who qualified ahead of them, couldn't go, so they got selected to go.
The competition itself took place over the course of a couple weeks.
Every day, it's a little bit like the Tour de France. The Tour de France works in stages, so every day you race, and then at the end, there's an overall winner based on who has the best times overall of the days. And that's exactly how glider racing works.
Andy has been flying since he was a teen, and he told me how he fell in love with the sport.
My very first experience or exposure to gliding, I didn't understand what I was seeing at the time, and I'll explain what I mean by that, but I knew I was coming up to see gliders. My dad was fascinated with gliders. He wanted to take a glider ride, and but we just ended up watching. And one of the gliders, the part that I didn't understand what I saw, the glider was doing what's called a speed pass. When they come in from the end of a practice task like you would do at a race, he was just practicing or out having fun. And when he was coming back, he was going really, really fast, and he kind of did like a speed pass over the runway at like probably 50 feet going, I don't know, maybe like 140 miles an hour in a glider. And then he pulled back up and gained a bunch of altitude and came around and, you know, went in for a landing. And I just thought that was so cool that you know, my dad wanted to take a ride, but I said, I want to learn how to do this. So my dad found out that there was a program for teenagers to learn how to fly gliders. So I started when I was 15, and I had my license by the time I was, I think, 17, and I've just been going from there. So.
That day, another pilot was about to take flight for the first time in a glider.
We came out, my father is turning 89 this weekend, and he's always talked about going for a glider ride. He's an aeronautical engineer, and he's worked on airplanes all his life and rockets and things like that, so just came down here to have glider rides with him. That's wonderful.
And believe it or not, I was surprised to learn this flight was an amazing experience, even for this commercial pilot.
It was perfect. Awesome. Really, it's the first time I've flown in a glider. I've been flying commercial airlines since 1946, so I've I've been on many, many flights, but this was something different. The quiet was the main advantage of it. You don't have to worry about the running out of gas. The engine won't stop, so it's perfect.
Wonderful. Andy got to work putting the plane together. It was stored in what looked like a trailer, and then he carefully put every piece together.
Need to go forward.
Before the flight, they strapped a parachute on me. I was sitting in the front of the plane, and more weight needed to be added to the nose of the plane so it would stay down. Then the exciting moment when we finally got towed into the air.
And there's big flats, and of course that's to the right. Basically, a glider, although there's no hill in the air, think of it as the glider constantly going downhill like a bike might coast down a hill to maintain its speed, and the steeper the hill, the faster you can go. So the steeper that a glider descends, the faster it'll go the same way. But eventually, in that case, you're going to get to the bottom of the hill, right? So with gliders, we're constantly looking for updrafts, which come in many forms. So what happens is, as you lose altitude, you might find an updraft, and it'll push the glider back up to the same altitude that it started, or maybe even higher. In many cases, a lot higher.
All right, so I'm up here. How high are we, Andy?
We're 2,000 feet above the ground and 3,900 feet above sea level.
There you go. We're about 2,000 feet above the ground. It is absolutely beautiful. It is quiet. And let me tell you, it's a crazy experience. You can feel the wind kind of blowing through this small little hole right here. You can see that. But the absolute most incredible thing about this flight is the view. It is crazy beautiful. It was a wonderful experience. I do get seasick, so it added a bit of challenge to the shoot.
So I'm going to make some circles.
Okay.
They're going to be kind of gentle circles, but let me know if they bother you at all. This is what keeps us in the air for extended periods of time, so this will make our flight a little longer.
All right, so we're sitting on the plane here, and Andy asked me how I'm feeling, and he said if I feel sick, he has some bags, so that's a nice piece of comforting technology they bring along on flight. Soaring is an experience I would recommend to anyone, and it is definitely one experience I will never forget.
It's just a really fascinating and incredibly unique thing that we have here, and that people, they might know about it, but they might not think too much about it. It gives you a huge appreciation for flying. It gives you a unique perspective on the area, because you can be up in a glider above Harris Hill and you can look left and you can see Seneca Lake, and you can look further left and you can see Corning, and you look right and you see Elmira. You kind of take a step back and look at the world that you live in on a 20-minute glider ride, and it's, like I said, it's quiet, it's incredibly relaxing. It's just a really unique experience that we're lucky to have here, honestly. So.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Twin Tier Sunday. I hope you learned a little, and if you can, try and make your way down here to Harris Hill to enjoy the spirit of aviation. I'll see you next week. Make sure you tune into Twin Tier Sunday. This week we explore our nation's soaring capital right here on top of Harris Hill. We go inside the museum and I show you what it feels like to take flight.